Turn off your video. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the June Hunger Free Communities Network quarterly meeting. We are so excited to have you with us today, and we have a full agenda for today's meeting, which you can see on my screen. And so today we have, and I'll introduce her in a minute, but our first topic will be engaging African-American farmers, landowners, and communities. And then we're going to get news from the Hunger Free Communities Network and spotlight on the Alabama Childhood Food Solutions group. And then there'll be an opportunity for you all to share any information you want with us. And then we'll hear from us at the Alliance and Hunger. We'll be sharing some news about our upcoming virtual summit, as well as our child nutrition reauthorization priorities, which is our big domestic advocacy effort right now, as well as the upcoming webinar on SNAP perceptions. And we're really excited to speak to you about all of that. But without further ado, I would like to introduce, and let me stop my share so that we can do this. And I will introduce to you our guest speaker. And so we're really thrilled to be joined by Tracy Lloyd McCurdy. She's the Executive Director of the Black Belt Justice Center and co-alchemist of Acres of Ancestry Initiative Black Agrarian Fund. For decades, Ms. McCurdy has fought for justice for African-American farmers. As a law student at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, she clerked for the North Carolina Association of Black Lawyers Land Loss Prevention Project, working on racial discrimination claims for a Black farmer. Ms. McCurdy is also the co-organizer of the Black Farmers Appeal Cancel Pigford Debt Campaign, raising awareness about the importance of debt forgiveness for Black farmers. So please help me in welcoming Ms. McCurdy. If you would, take it away. And I know Unique, I'm sorry to interrupt. Unique, you're going to be sharing Tracy's slides. So we'll see those on the screen in just a minute, I'm sure. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. Thank you, Unique, for assisting me for the next 20 minutes as I invite you into my own imagination and the imagination of the Acres of Ancestry Initiative Black Agrarian Fund. The Black imagination is regenerative when boundless and interdependent. And I've been doing this work since 2012. We launched the Black Belt Justice Center. But in 2019, we started thinking about taking what we call an ecosystem approach to preserving Black family land, the Black family land commons. And so the Acres of Ancestry Initiative Black Agrarian Fund is an ecosystem of farmers, attorneys, heritage quilters, musicians, textile artists, using textile arts and ecocultural traditions to preserve custodial land ownership, ecological stewardship, and food and fiber cooperatives in the South. We can go to the next slide. We have been deeply inspired by the Freedom Quilting Bee. The Freedom Quilting Bee is a women's cooperative that was founded during the Civil Rights Movement. They were one of the founding members of the Federation of Southern Cooperatives Land Assistance Fund. And these industrious women were able to use their textile crafts to, they sold them up south to the department stores and raised money to acquire land. They acquired maybe 17 acres of land in Alberta, Alabama, and they were able to give 7 plots of land to members of the co-op who had been displaced off their land due to their political activity. Many of them were tenant farmers. And so we were very inspired by the women of the Freedom Quilting Bee. And we love this quote from Creola Bennett Petway. She said, a lot of times you don't need to go to a book for everything. You need some of the stuff that God put in you. That's the way I am. And we really carry this wisdom in our bellies and in the works of the Acres of Ancestry Initiative Black Agrarian Fund. Next slide. So this is Fannie Pearl Etheridge. She is a legacy member of the Freedom Quilting Bee, and we are working with her closely. We plan to sell a heritage quilt from her through our e-commerce site, and it's called the Lazy Gal Queen Kiver. The Lazy Gal is a heritage pattern of many of our grandmothers in the South, and many beginning quilters learned how to quilt with just strips of fabric. And so we're playing on Lazy Gal as far as resting, the needed rest, and then queen, and of course they say kiver instead of cover, very lovingly. So we wanted to honor our grandmothers, and we're really excited about selling that heritage quilt through our website, and all the proceeds would go to Miss Etheridge. Here she's standing with another quilt that she created with a photo that we have licensed use for of Fannie Lou Hamer standing in the Freedom Farm. And this picture was taken by Louis Draper, a renowned Black arts photographer. And we've been working with the trust to incorporate this historic photo in various textile crafts. Next slide. And all of those funds would be used to replenish the Black Agrarian Fund. And so when I talked about standing in the radical Black imagination, I was really speaking to the Black Farmers Appeal Cancel Pickford Debt campaign. Our law firm and our collective of heritage quilters, musicians, farmers, researchers, and attorneys got involved after we learned of the disastrous implementation of this historic class action racial discrimination lawsuit that went terribly wrong for Black farmers. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of the Pickford v. Glickman class action racial discrimination lawsuit that was brought by Black farmers. They tirelessly organized to bring this lawsuit back in 1997, charging well-documented pervasive racial animus, collusion, and criminality by USDA that resulted in massive loss of Black-owned farms, and also the failure of USDA to investigate claims of discrimination through the Office of Civil Rights. Just to lift up an important piece of Black agrarian history, back in 1983, President Ronald Reagan actually closed the Office of Civil Rights after one of our Pickford legacy farmers complained. He actually wrote President Reagan at the time. His name is Bernard Bates. He had over 950 acres of land in Hill City, Kansas. And due to racial discrimination, he lost all 950 acres. And he wrote President Ronald Reagan at the time. And shortly thereafter, Ronald Reagan closed the very arm that was charged with investigating racial discrimination complaints. And it wasn't reopened until the Clinton administration in 1996, 1997. And so I really wanted to lift up another legacy farmer here, Philip Haney, from Northumberland County, Virginia. And he's speaking about the failures of the Pickford consent decree. A lot of folks aren't aware that the attorneys that represented the Black farmers in the consent decree negotiated away discovery. And then the burden was placed on the Black farmer to find a similarly situated white farmer that had not been discriminated against, with information that only USDA had and that USDA was now not compelled to share with the Black farmer. This is very important. Another aspect of the lawsuit that was terribly unfair was that the payments, the $50,000 cash payments, were not based on actual economic harm. They were actually based on the payments to the survivors of the Tuskegee untreated syphilis experiment. And those payments to the survivors were $37,500. And so the decision regarding the cash payments, they actually, class counsel and DOJ set aside the recommendation of a professor from North Carolina A&T State University that stated that the payment should be at least $250,000 in order for Black farmers to re-enter the agricultural industry. And so I just wanted to lift up this quote from Philip Haney, where he says, "This is a continuation of the USDA's war against Black farmers, having disarmed them by false promises of a good faith settlement." So the Black farmers at the time were promised compensation for anti-Black racism and economic harm, land, debt cancellation, federal and state tax relief, and access to non-extractive capital. When you really dig into the archives of the Pigford lawsuit, one of the elder farmers talked about her annual debt being $25,000, and $20,000 of that debt was interest. This is Gladys Todd from Zebulon, North Carolina. We can go on to the next slide. And I would really invite beloved community to go to our website. We have community archives where you can go through some of these historical documents to read it for yourself at acresofAncestry.org. We also have a 18-episode web series called Black Farm Stolen: The Legacy of the Pigford Lawsuit, where we interviewed 3 of the farmers that we represented in federal court, Lucius Abrams, Eddie Slaughter, and Carl Parker, where they detail the lived experience of the discrimination they endured with USDA even after the lawsuit. So the lawsuit actually left the vast majority of Black farmers in debt with no legal recourse to protect themselves and under the threat of foreclosure from USDA. Which brings us to our campaign, the Black Farmers Appeal Cancel Pigford Debt campaign. Many of you may have heard of the debt cancellation provisions in the American Rescue Plan Act. And in that act, it provided $4 billion in debt cancellation for Black, Latino, Native American, Asian, and farmers of color, and then another $1 billion in aid. But I think it's really important for us to process this data where USDA just provided this to us. 2,000 out of the 17,000 farmers of color with direct loans with USDA are Black. So that means roughly 12% of the farmers of color are Black and will receive debt cancellation. Out of the 48,000 Black farmers, that means less than 5% will receive debt cancellation. So when we talk about restorative land justice for Black farmers and how Black farmers now comprise less than 2% of all US farmers and European Americans own 98% of the land, we have to look very critically and honestly at federal ag policy and how USDA has been complicit in eroding the Black agricultural land base, and thus must be a part of the solution to restore it to the numbers back at the height of Black land ownership, which was 16 million acres in 1910. Again, I just wanted to lift up, a lot of people aren't aware that in 2020, President Trump dispersed over $46 billion in subsidies to mostly white farmers and large-scale farms to mitigate the trade fallout with China. And I think it's really important when you contextualize the Pigford lawsuit. The Pigford lawsuit was $1 billion and only 4.8% of that 1 billion went to debt cancellation. And so that's how you had the vast majority of Black farmers in debt to USDA. Over the last 20 years, USDA has actually offset the Black farmers' loan accounts, taking their tax refunds, their farm subsidies, their social security payments, their disability payments. And so we have to really wrestle as a beloved community. How is this possible that the historic class action racial discrimination lawsuit resulted in Black farmers being in debt and having to wait 22 years for justice. And now justice has been delayed again because white farmers in Minnesota, well, across various states, filed a lawsuit stating that the debt cancellation provision in the American Rescue Plan Act discriminated against them. And thus the judge has halted the debt cancellation program. And so our Black farmers continue to suffer, and they've been suffering for over 22 years. And we can see that in this abysmal number of only 2,000 out of the 17,000 farmers of color are Black and will receive debt cancellation once we are able to lift the temporary restraining order or come up with another remedy to address the injustice. We can go to the next slide. I just want to make sure that of my time. This is actually the poster, the artwork for our campaign. And I always say that it's really important, the power of the word and intention, because if you look, we said here that 1.5 million acres would be returned to Black farmers. And that, again, many of the Black farmers refer to USDA as the last plantation. And so we said we want to rebuild the People's Department, right? One of the travesties of where we are right now, particularly with our campaign, is that we've called many of the descendants of the Pickford legacy farmers that have ascended to the land of the ancestors, and many of the children. We were hopeful that they would have received notification from USDA before the issuance of this temporary restraining order. And we spoke to the descendants of one of the Pickford legacy farmers. Her name is Janie Bell Bembry from Hawkinsville, Georgia. She ascended to the land of the ancestors earlier in January. And sadly, USDA had initiated a foreclosure proceeding against the family back in 2011. And so they had to take out a loan with a private bank in order to pay that unconscionable debt with USDA that was racially motivated in order to save the farm. And so consequently, they are ineligible to receive relief, debt cancellation through the American Rescue Plan Act because they don't have the direct loan with USDA anymore. We can proceed to the next slide. And so when we talk about the Black radical imagination, I just wanted to share with you, again, some of the strategies that we have used over the last 3 years to bring about justice for the remaining Pickford legacy farmers that are holding on to their land, by a thread. One of my favorite African proverbs goes, "Until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." We also have another African proverb that undergirds and supports our work through the campaign, and it's "The axe forgets what the tree remembers." The axe forgets what the tree remembers, and our trees are our Pickford legacy farmers. They carry the memory and the lived experiences of what they've endured due to entrenched racial discrimination, animus, criminality, and collusion by our government. So I wanted to lift up here. I would invite beloved community, when you get an opportunity, to go to our YouTube channel to watch Black Farm Stolen, the legacy of the Pickford lawsuit. We also worked with the low country hip hop group Native Son. We have an anthem, The Land. We also have a concert film called Restoration that's moving through various film festivals now, and we look forward to sharing it with beloved community at the appropriate time. And again, also our community archives. I just want to end. I can't speak enough to the alliances that we've had with Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Cory Booker, and Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, who really got behind this issue and elevated it to a national discourse with respect to debt cancellation for Pickford legacy farmers. And they are all still very much committed to restorative land justice for our Pickford legacy farmers due to this egregious wrong that happened in the courts over 20 years ago. We can go to the next slide. So again, I just wanted to lift up some of the small victories. Early on, we were engaging the Biden-Harris transition team, and we told them that, you know, our two issues were debt cancellation and a foreclosure moratorium. And shortly after President Biden took office, he issued a foreclosure moratorium across USDA. And we can't even talk about the impact of that. If we go to the next slide, you'll see we wanted to lift up the CGUs, 5 generations of sugarcane farmers in Louisiana, and their debt at the outset of the Pickford lawsuit was $525,000 that ballooned now to over $1 million. And what we were able to do with the foreclosure moratorium, they were actually in the last stages of a foreclosure proceeding. And due to Biden's courageous issuance of the foreclosure moratorium, the land right now is still with the family. And we're hopeful, and we're going to continue to fight for a just resolution for the CGUs and other Pickford legacy farmers. So I just wanted to leave beloved community with this quote. This is a quote from one of our quoters, Carolyn Beard Whitlow from Virginia, and we entitled it Green Cosmos. We thought that name was appropriate. And the quote goes, "As granddaughters of Black agrarian women, light bearers who repurpose sufferings into protective coverings, we carry solutions to restore ecological harmony in our imaginations, hearts, and hands." Thank you so much. At this time, I will, I guess, look in the chat. The next slide, Unique, does have my information. If anybody would like to, reach out to me, if you have any questions, if you would like to support our campaign, we are determined. The farmers have been, again, fighting for over 30 years. And so it's just really an honor for me to be a part of this historic soul work that we're doing to restore the Black agricultural land base.
Thank you so much, Tracy. This is Minerva. That was fascinating and very timely. I know Unique dropped a few things in the chat, particularly that are happening right now with the USDA trying to move forward with that debt relief, and how that is now, because of a lawsuit that's been filed, that's been halted. Would love to open this up. If you have a question, you can drop it in the chat or in the Q&A, or raise your hand and we will unmute you. In addition to questions for Tracy, we'd love to hear how you see some of this playing out in your own communities, how some of you are working with farmers of color, Black farmers, Indigenous farmers in your communities. So please feel free to ask your questions. In the meantime, while folks are queuing themselves up to do that, Tracy, can you talk a little bit more about this new USDA administration, and what are some of the other things that you see promise in terms of their behavior towards, really creating an equitable environment for Black farmers?
Yes, we actually had a meeting with Secretary Thomas Vilsack a couple of weeks ago to discuss the implementation of the debt cancellation provisions in the American Rescue Plan Act, as well as USDA's commitment to dismantling institutional discrimination within the agency. Secretary Vilsack talked about the creation of an equity commission. And I'm very cautious about that because again, I invite beloved community to go to our community archives on our website, and the Black farmer has been studied to their ancestorhood. We have reports dating back to 1965 with the U.S. Commission of Civil Rights that documents, rampant discrimination within the agency. And one of the travesties with the Pickford lawsuit is that it did nothing to uproot institutional discrimination within the agency. And so I think that the numbers that we have, where now there are only 2,000 Black farmers that have direct loans with USDA, and the fact that there are only 48,000 Black farmers, and less than 3% of all Black farmland is Black farms, 3 million acres, excuse me. We have a lot of equity work to do. And so we have invited Secretary Vilsack and USDA to get behind the Justice for Black Farmers Act that really is robust legislation to address institutional discrimination within the agency. And I must say that we worked very closely with Senator Elizabeth Warren when she was running for president to develop a very comprehensive policy platform to also dismantle institutional discrimination within USDA. And so we invite USDA to be a partner and to center Black farmers in addressing this longstanding history of USDA having a very bellicose, aggressive position with Black farmers instead of being allies in restoring the Black agricultural land base.
Thank you. So we're almost at time, and unfortunately, I don't see any questions, but how can we at the Alliance to End Hunger and our community partners be supportive in this effort? What can we do?
I would say we purposefully, curated the community archives to do teach-ins, to really deepen self-study about what happened to the Black farmer and the complicity of our US government in the erosion of the Black agricultural land base. And so I think that to really stand behind the Justice for Black Farmers Act, to really stand behind the American Rescue Plan Act, it's astounding to me that this lawsuit could even occur when the vast majority of the subsidies and many of the farmers that are bringing these lawsuits receive large subsidies from USDA, which is the irony, right? Because when you look at the COVID relief monies, less than 1%, I think it's 0.01% of 1% went to Black farmers. And that was reported in the Washington Post and also the New York Times. And so again, I think when we talk about restoring the Black agricultural land base, we need to, it's not going to just be the Black community. We really need the beloved community, which includes everyone, needs to be a part of the solution and to support Black farmers.
Thank you so much. We take up that call to action, and we will be supporting the Justice for Black Farmers legislation, as well as just, helping to educate, continuing to educate our partners and members about this issue. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you.
All right. So our next presenter is Jim Jones. And, one of the things I really like about what we do at these meetings is highlight our partners, what they're doing, and so that we can really get a sense of who's in the network. And so we've invited Jim Jones, who's the president of the Alabama Childhood Food Solutions, to tell us about what they're doing. So Jim, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Is my mic on?
It is. We hear you wonderfully.
It was quite exciting to hear Tracy speak. I live in Central Alabama. At age 76, I have seen what she was describing. Over the past 60 or so years that I was old enough to know and understand, I have seen the constant degradation of who owns the farm and who's doing the work and who is or is not reaping the results of that. And I thank you, Tracy, for being willing to step out and care for us. Alabama Childhood Food was organized. I think we're going to have a few slides to add here shortly. in 2011. My wife and I were the co-founders, and a very exciting time in our life. We had been on 25 international mission trips around the world, 5 different continents, sharing a ton of food here or a ton of food there. Being able to travel and see the needs around the world was very eye-opening. We have seen people of all color with the same hunger as we have here in Central Alabama. The average hunger around the world is greater than 27%, and we have taken note of that. I have spent months in Kenya, Africa, and I have seen the food stolen off the dock that should be given to those people in need. I have been to Vietnam and India and countries in Southeast Asia and seen that the food is often distributed by well-meaning nations. But as it comes off the ship, it's loaded onto trucks that take that food and sell it to other people who may or may not need it. And they then take that food and the third party and sell it to the poorest of people at the highest of prices. Greed is rampant around the world. That's what happened to us in Central Alabama. The reason that we have a 1 in 3 poverty level in Central Alabama. There are 9 counties that Alabama Childhood Food supports. And our goal is to make a difference, starting with the youngest of kids and being sure that they're fed, ensuring that they get a quality education by working with the school boards in all of these counties, and providing the food for weekend. And later we added the families to our distribution. While our numbers are not gigantic, we are doing what God would have us to do. Next slide, please. We are making a new difference in the future through nutrition, as I mentioned. If we can have a child who feels that he is not hungry when he returns to school on Monday morning, he will learn better, be physically better, have better health in general, and he will have an attitude that will allow him or her to learn more quickly. By working with the school boards, we have found that the U.S. Department of Agriculture is helping wherever they can, but there's still many areas that are missed. Some of the schools in Alabama don't have the ability to apply for all the grants that they need. They don't understand some of the grant process, and therefore some kids are missed and are not counted among those who are food insecure and have great needs. Alabama Childhood Food started out, next slide, started out by teaching kids in my personal gardens in near Sylacauga, Alabama. We had kids from one of the local elementary schools that came to our farm in May, and some of the kids were available through the summer to come back and see what they had planted, see what God could do to care for feeding them, teach them how to make a difference in their own world, encourage them and their families to plant their own gardens, to show them what it takes to take a seed and turn it into a basket of groceries. It's always exciting to see a child realize that he or she has created something with God's help in watering, planting, and the smiles that they get on their face when they eat their first strawberry that they had planted themselves. And I put little spoons with their name on it near the strawberry plants so that they will see that it's their strawberry that they're eating. Next slide, please. Sharing health and good food is very easily done when you have a relationship with the school systems. We have developed a very good relationship with the school systems. We have the superintendent of education in 2 counties that are on our board to help us to make decisions of how to get the food to the kids as rapidly as possible and to make a difference in their life through the teaching. We continue to have gardens at a number of schools, both inside and outside, so that the kids can learn. But it's not just about the gardening or about the food. Teaching them health and good care and how to care for themselves and others is a big part of our effort in Central Alabama. I do want to throw in a plug. All the photos that you see in this presentation are from our efforts in Central Alabama. Next slide, please. We started after coming back from Africa in late 2010. I realized that the hunger on the streets of Sylacauga, Alabama, was exactly the same as it was in Kenya, Africa, Malindi, Kenya. I tried to drive by the kids in my own town and ignore that, but I could not ignore it because they would stand. We have a number of communities in Sylacauga where those who don't have as much funds and are not as prosperous live. I drove through that community and I could see kids standing by the side of the street looking hungry. Some of them, evidently, the families struggle to prosper enough to even dress their kids well. So after much prayer and deliberation, my wife and I decided that we could make a difference. I had an experience on my tractor that I'll share with you rather quickly. I was mowing on my little farm of about 30 acres, and a voice came into my head, heart, brain, whatever you might say. Jim Jones, if you will distribute, I will provide. I took that to be a message from God. I immediately came back to my house and suggested to my wife that we had to start taking care of the kids. We got 40 bags out of food for the weekend and out of our own pockets, and took it to one of the local communities and beeped the horn on the truck, and the kids came running. A teacher saw that on the first Saturday that we did that and invited us to come to a Board of Education meeting. And so we did, and we carried 40 bags with us that day. That food we found was not nearly enough. Our growth rate, even before we named Alabama Childhood Food, was we added about 100 kids per week for the first 10 weeks. When we got to 1,000 kids, we realized we needed help, and we reached out to some of the local churches, the local grocery stores, and there was an amazing response. Now, after just 10 years, Alabama Childhood Food is a voice in the hunger community of Central Alabama. I'm on the advisory committee of the Community Food Bank of Central Alabama, and we work closely with Feeding America and other organizations such as the Alliance to make sure that as many people as possible are fed. Next slide, please. The food that we collect is often nutritious and it's fresh whenever possible. It is often grown in our own gardens. Next slide. We try to give quality food as often, well, without a doubt, often. Through the store-to-door program of Feeding America, we're able to glean good fresh vegetables, meat, milk, cheese, and other things, as many programs do. And we're excited that we can share as often as we do. Next slide. We provide hope. This is a slide of hope by one of our volunteers. It has all the things that we are giving in our food boxes and weekend food bags. We start with the basic necessities. We try to give them milk, cheese, fresh vegetables wherever possible. There is one thing on this slide that we do not send to the kids, and that's peanut butter because of the risk that comes with an allergy. But we do provide hope, not only to the children, but also to the families. Next slide. This is my wife and myself. We are the co-founders of Alabama Childhood Food. We have worked closely together with the help of many, many volunteers, and I'll mention that more in just a minute or two. Next slide. Volunteers, as all of you probably know, are the key to the success of any organization. With the number of churches and other groups that have walked with, that continue to walk with Alabama Childhood Food, we have over 800 part-time volunteers that we can get to come and help us on short notice. We started with this large group of volunteers outside at a drive-by distribution back in 2012. We invited a number of people in the community who needed food to come. The newspaper picked it up and said we had food for anybody that would come, and 1,500 families showed up. We were a little overwhelmed. Since then, we have been able to continue to grow in size so that we could handle that if we needed to. Next slide, please. This is 2011. This is our first distribution at an old grocery store building on the outside in July, and in the summertime in Alabama. It was over 90 degrees. A Christian drove by and saw the need and agreed to sponsor our distributions for 1 year. And we were able to grow very rapidly and continue to grow even today. Next slide, please. God has provided us in the last year, with a year or two, with 3 vans with freezer trailers, so that we are able to move food from the Birmingham area, some 50 miles from Sylacauga and Talladega County, to our warehouse. We have a 9,000 square foot warehouse that functions very rapidly. We get the food in, fill it up, and within 7 days, we have emptied it again. On the average, we're running, moving 25 or more pallets of food per week, and we're having to enjoy it. All of our drivers are volunteers. They get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so we'll have food by 8 o'clock to start sharing with the people that we serve. Next slide, please. And then came COVID. That's a statement that you've probably heard more than a few times. It was a booger bear in central Alabama. Many of the small food pantries went out of business. Many were not able to fund it, and without the help of COVID relief and the government. Fortunately, in our state, we were large enough that we were able to get some of those funds and overcame COVID very rapidly and without a problem. We next slide, please. We immediately changed from just carrying bags of bulk food to the schools and letting them distribute it, to boxing it and sending the food out to the people around our 7 counties. This is also probably one of the reasons that the federal government saw that boxing and sending the food to the homes of the children came about. We started in March of 2020 getting the food right out the door. The gentleman in that photo is our director, Mr. Gene Rogers. Moving on. In addition to getting the food to kids and by sending it out to the different places, we were given a used school bus, and we turned it into the Feeding Little Tummies bus. And we have had as much fun as anybody possibly could trying to find the little children in our area who need help. And they get so excited when they see the Feeding Little Tummies bus coming our way and coming their way. And we try to just give them a bag lunch which contains food for 3 or more days. We do that at least once a week in 7 or 8 distribution sites. And in some areas, we're able to do 2 boxes a week. You'll notice that God provided us with signs of the times, and the little kids that we're able to serve are just delightful. We serve all ages of schools. Of course, the little children love the food more than the bigger children. Big children seem to reject the idea that they're having to take food. But when the football team takes it, the kids under them believe that it's needed. Next slide, please. Alabama Childhood Food has an urgent need, and we are working very rapidly on it. We're in a 9,000 square foot warehouse, and we are moving. We're building a new warehouse that will have 30,000 square feet with 10,000 square feet of refrigeration and freezer space, so that we can continue to grow and have a larger footprint of serving God in Alabama and making a difference. Last slide, please. Together, we can end hunger in Alabama and in America. And I thank God that He used me and used the people around me to make a difference in Central Alabama. We are very excited, Tracy, to tell you that we serve all races and we care for all of those. I have seen the damage that was done in the 30s and 40s, and then the problems that still existed in the 50s and 60s of hunger in Central Alabama. And there are many of us who care. And I encourage all of those who are seeing this today to continue to work hard to make a difference in people's lives.
Thank you so much, Jim. So heartwarming to hear your story and to learn about the growth of the work that you've been doing. Tell me, are you still farming yourself, or is that something you had to give up?
Absolutely. Somewhere in there, we missed a slide that had about half a bushel of green beans and some okra, not okra, but cucumbers and red tomatoes. But we do have a garden right outside. I can't get my camera over there. It's right outside my front window. We have 30 acres, and we're able to give food from our garden to others. We have a large number of fruit trees, and so we've been giving away apples and peaches already, and we encourage our neighbors to do the same. The people in this area care for one another, and they have since I was in school in the early 50s and early 60s. And I am thankful that I can live in a community that did away with integration a long time, or segregation a long time ago, and continue to care for people today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jim. We will give folks a second to see if they have any questions. Please raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat or the Q&A. In the meantime, I did have a question for you myself, which is for the program where you're giving children food. Do you partner with any of the federal nutrition programs, like the summer meals program?
Actually, we're with the summer meals program, and those who are seriously rural, who are not getting their food through the mail or by picking it up at the school, we're continuing to reach out to those. That we explore as many avenues as I can put my finger on to get food to share with those who have less than I do.
Well, thank you for that. And we're happy to share with you offline about some of the resources that we know about for rural communities. Did you have a point you wanted to make, Jim?
One more comment. Y'all can see us at alabamachildhoodfood.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate your participation in the network. We really value having the perspective that you bring. I think there is a question. Do you distribute prepared meals? Is a question from one of the
everything. No, we do not prepare meals. We give groceries. We give child-friendly food in our weekend backpack, which would be a high-protein canned meal, SpaghettiOs, soups and things that are factory prepared, so that we don't have to go through all of the health department problems here on site. And we try to provide in our weekend bag at least 3 high protein, 5, including 2 lunches, 3 suppers, 2 breakfasts, and then snacks to cover the weekend.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jim. So that was the only question, but we are sharing your website in the chat. So please check out alabamachildhoodfood.com. Thank you so much for your time today, Jim. So now we're going to turn to just any news that any of our attendees want to share about what they're doing in their communities. This is a good opportunity to do that while I pull up the slides for the Alliance to End Hunger presentation. So feel free to raise your hand if you want. We can unmute you or just drop a comment in the chat or the Q&A. All right. People are being very shy today, but that's okay. So we'll go, Unique, keep an eye on that chat in case I missed it, since I have the slides up. It's hard for me to see, hard for me to see the chat and the Q&A while I'm doing this. Thank you so much, everybody. So we are just gonna move to our presentation here from the Alliance to End Hunger. So we have a few things to update you about, if I can figure out my slideshow here. What is going on? There we go. All right. So the first thing we want to announce and just make sure that folks really put it on their calendars is that we have decided on the dates for our virtual Hunger-Free Community Summit. As all of you hopefully know by now, hopefully you've attended past conferences, we have an annual event where we're really highlighting what works in communities to end hunger. So in other words, highlighting the work that you all do. We want to make sure you have the date in front of you. It's November 3rd and 4th. Soon we'll be sending out registration. We will be having a virtual summit again, so no need to make any travel plans for this one. We're really excited to bring you the content virtually this year. And what we really found with last year, where we had our first virtual summit, was that many, many more people were able to participate because they didn't have the travel, the costs associated with all of that. And so that was a huge benefit. Also, because it's all recorded, that content is on our website. So if you didn't attend the Hunger-Free Community Summit last year, you can see all of the workshops, the plenaries on our website. And Unique, if you could grab that link and drop it in the chat for anybody who's missed a session, please check it out. It's one of the advantages of being able to do this virtually, is that all of those sessions have a long lifespan and many of them are still relevant. So our goals this year for the summit are to highlight and promote best practices for ending hunger at the community level, which is what you're all experts in. And, you know, we really want to do that through learning what works. Are there new program models that are exciting, that are working, new partnerships that you're developing? You know, what are you doing to address the root causes of hunger and poverty, looking at racial and gender equity issues? So we want to hear about all of it. So we count on you for content. So very soon we're going to be distributing a request for workshop proposals. And this is an opportunity for you all to highlight work that you've been doing and bring that to a national audience, to the other members of the Hunger-Free Communities Network, but also all of our national partners that participate in this, as well as some of the oversight agencies that you all care about and work with, like USDA, for example, are participants in the conference, as well as offices of elected officials at the national level, but also from around the country. So we will be getting that request for proposals. We want to see what content you're interested in seeing at the summit. And if you're not ready to submit a workshop proposal, but you just have ideas, please email me. My contact email is there. Hopefully you know that by now, but just email me and say, hey, Minerva, at this year's summit, I'd love to see content around A, B, or C, whatever you're interested in seeing. We always really want to make sure that this conference really reflects the issues that you care about. So we want to hear more about that. Also, the conference itself is an opportunity to build new skills, identify new networks, and identify new resources. So we're very excited about that. So that's information about the Hunger-Free Community Summit, and more will be coming your way fairly soon. And before I introduce someone, I do want to mention we have an upcoming webinar. You should have gotten an email about this, but feel free to reach out if you need information. The webinar is a special event for our members and Hunger-Free community partners. Feeding America has contracted with a polling firm, research firm, to really find out what is the public opinion of SNAP as a result of the pandemic. How has that changed? And they really focused on identifying conservative SNAP supporters. So we will be doing a workshop on that next Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern. So please sign up for that. We will send you the information in the follow-up email for you to sign up for that webinar, which should be fascinating. And I want to acknowledge that Kate Howe from Indie Hunger Network will be one of our respondents to the polling data. So looking forward to that very much. So I do want to spend a good, Allison, you have 3 minutes. First, I want to introduce Allison Maurice, who is the domestic policy analyst at the Alliance to End Hunger. So she's one of our newer staff members at the Alliance, and we're so thrilled to have Allison working with us. And she's really helping us with our domestic priorities. And right now, our biggest priority for advocacy is child nutrition reauthorization. So this is where all of those school meals, summer meals, after school meals, WIC programs get improved and hopefully expanded. And so let me see, Allison, can we get you on the screen here? I want to make sure that we're able to see you and talk to you, and help us help walk through some of our, obviously you don't have time to walk through all of our priorities, but tell everyone a little bit about what we're doing on child nutrition reauthorization.
Sure. Thanks, Minerva. Hi, everybody. My name is Allison. So glad to be with you all today. Like Minerva said, I'm still fairly new with the Alliance, but I have a couple months now under my belt. So really learning about how we work with all of our members at the national level to build consensus around recommendations to really improve the child nutrition programs, to make sure that kids have access and that the benefits are adequate for ensuring that no kids are going hungry. So part of what we've done so far is we really have taken the major priorities of the kind of lead national anti-hunger organizations, brought all those priorities together, distilled them down into top level priorities that the Alliance, as a membership organization of almost 100 organizations, that we can all get behind. And so most of them are really about expanding access to summer meals, to WIC, and to the school meal programs. So if you check out on our website, on our advocacy page, you will see that we have our CNR priorities listed there, and you can find a fact sheet about the priorities that we specifically are supporting. And then additionally, I am tracking the different marker bills that are being introduced. So bills are already coming down the pike. So we're keeping an eye on those, and you'll see on our website a list of those marker bills, as well as which ones the Alliance has already endorsed and are supporting. And so keep an eye out for that. We'll keep that updated as more bills are introduced. But otherwise, I'm always happy to talk policy shop with anybody who's interested and kind of talk about what it might mean when these policies are implemented at the state and local level. So feel free to reach out. Thanks.
Thank you, Allison. So everyone, you have Allison's email here. And we will be including that priorities one pager in the follow-up email for this webinar. But we do have a request, which is if you and your organizations are working on child nutrition issues, let us know. We'd love to work with you to set up meetings with members of Congress from your state to talk about, the priorities that you care about. And so that is something that we will do to work with you at the Alliance around advocacy. And so Allison will be your point person on that. So that's all we have for today. So look forward to that follow-up email. As always, we do share these webinars on our website. So please let folks know, anybody who missed this meeting, that they can access it on our website at the Alliance to End Hunger. in short order. So thank you, everyone. And a special thanks to Unique. Unique, can you turn on your video? I'd love to see you. Unique has been working with us. I know most of you have gotten emails from her, spoken to her over the last 6 months, but she actually was very nice to join us today because she's officially moved on from the Alliance. We're just so thrilled for her and her new opportunities, and just really thankful for the time that she spent with us, and just want to say thank you, Unique. And we're going to miss you. We really appreciate everything you've done for us at the Alliance.
And yeah, I just want to say thank you, Minerva. I really enjoyed my time with the Alliance and getting to meet all of you with the Hunger Free communities and our various point of contacts, emails, events, and webinars. It's really been a great experience working with everyone. And I really enjoyed my time, and wishing the best as you all continue forward.
Thank you. All right, everyone, have a good afternoon, and we'll be in touch. Bye-bye.